What's going on, everybody? Brian at Two Indians. How's it going this morning? I am getting ready to take the bike over to the dyno shop to get it tuned, and I'm gonna get it on the trailer. And hey, I'm rolling, oh, look out. And somebody once asked me, hey, can you show us how you put your bike on the trailer? So I'm gonna do that. All right, let's do it. Hey, it's Brian and Barbara with Two Indians. Do it. First thing you got to do is take it for a spin around the block. And turn the head around. Alright, then you got to get her lined up. And away we go. See, there's always something I forget to do. Hang on, gotta press the pause button. So I have to loosen up my highway pegs here and spin it out of the way, otherwise it's going to hit the wheel well on the trailer. And that's all I gotta do. Alright, let's try this again. So I shut the bike off, I put the kickstand down, and then I just kind of let it lean over to its normal position. Now, if I was putting a second bike on, I'd make sure that the rear wheel is far enough over so that when I strap it down and get it in its right position, that I've got plenty of room for the second bike. But I always put the right bike on first because it allows me to use the kickstand. My trailer isn't wide enough to get the second bike on and put the kickstand down, because when I try to put it down, it hits that rail over there. So basically, you just want to get enough tension on this so when we mount the straps on the opposite side, we can start cranking it up a little bit and we don't have to worry about it pulling the bike all the way over. Now the rear one, I like to wrap around the crash bar in the back. It's really the only attachment point that we have on these bikes, but typically it's suitable enough. Now, I'm not going to get into how to hook up one of these straps because you can pretty much figure that out on your own. Essentially, you want to pull the bike forward up into the wheel chock, so you have both sets of straps pulling forward. And now let's walk around to the other side. Now this side's always a bit of a pain because I've got such a short distance here between the fender and my attachment point and where it anchors to the trailer. So this is not a science. This is more of an art. Because if it were a science, everybody would have the same opinion on how to do it, and nobody does. I like to hook over my fork where the fender is. I wish I had a different attachment point. I understand Kuryakin makes something that attaches here somewhere, but the point is, some people like to throw the strap over the bars. I am not a fan of that, because when you put it over the handlebars and you start pulling the bike, the springs compress and it doesn't allow the bike to move. When you do it this way, it keeps the springs from being compressed and allows the bike to move up above the wheel, and the wheel is firmly in place. Very little chance for movement. All right, let's get the back one on. Let me tell you, these things are never easy to do. So I've got all 4 points attached, 2 on the front forks, 2 on the rear crash bars, and now I can start pulling the bike forward. And I should have actually had it higher up. Normally I do, but I actually had the camera mounted here, so I wasn't able to pull all the way up. So you can't see it, but the bike is pretty much straight up and down, or plumb at this point. But if I were to crank it more on the opposite side, it might pull the bike over, even though I've got this safety strap on here. But now I'm just gonna kind of pull on this one just a little bit, and basically you just want to work your way around the bike and keep adding tension. See, now the strap's from the other side. So you just want to keep putting tension on the straps all the way around. And it's just a constant back and forth. And like I said, normally I would have ridden the bike right up into the wheel chock, and I would have been very snug up in there from the get-go. And I wouldn't have to worry about pulling it up so high. Normally it's just a couple quick adjustments. You also want to keep checking the bike to make sure it's plumb and level. It's pretty close at this point. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn close. There's my other camera. But as you can see, she's pulled all the way up in there. And that's how you do it. She's not really going anywhere now. It only takes a few minutes. To do one bike by yourself is easy. To do 2 bikes by yourself is really hard. If I was doing 2 bikes by myself, I would have the other straps already laid out and have one of them hanging up over here. And it's kind of hard because you gotta get up, and with one hand you gotta hold the front brake hand in position and use your left hand to try and weave the straps around whatever you can, because on my trailer it's not wide enough to get the kickstand down for this side. So anyway, that's how you do it. I think we're good to go. Let's get this over to the dyno guy so I can squeeze a few more drops of horsepower out of this baby. All right, one last thing, always double check your straps, because after it's sat on there for a while they tend to stretch a little bit. So just run around and kind of, you know, give an extra tug or a pull on each one. Don't just take it for granted that everything's tight, especially if you're going to trailer overnight or for a long trip. Check it the first couple hours that you're driving, you know, your first stop for gas or something. If you park overnight somewhere and you keep it strapped down, definitely re-tighten it the next morning before you leave. All right, I think that's kind of it. Any of these loose straps that are, you know, hanging out with extra, because they can get caught under a tire or they can just flap around and create a whole lot of havoc that you don't want to have to deal with. So I usually tie them up to a crash bar, something like this. I'm trying to do it one-handed. You know, I tie it up really tight, just so we don't have any of those problems. All right.